Hello and welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. Once again, I'm your host with the most, Steve Smith. I can already feel your anticipation. This is episode number 18. Number 18 today equals Barnbougle. Yes, Barnbougle. Now, it's taken me a few weeks to get my shit together and think about my trip to Barnbougle that I conquered back in March. And for this unique episode, I will be having a conversation under the usual name of Golf Chat with my resident conversationalist, Ross Flannigan. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Ross and I break down our virgin experience to what I call our Australian version of Bandon, being that of Barnbougle. Now, I will briefly preface our pre-recorded conversation by saying that both Ross and I get completely swept away again, in retrospect, recounting what we experienced in Tasmania's northeast coast. Needless to say, our convo does go for a little while, so you'll probably pause and come back a little bit, because we get lost again in what it is and what our experience was. So, look, like I said, you might pause it and come back. You might listen to the whole thing. I'm just letting you know that it's not a 1 hour episode, just so that you're ready when you get into it. And I will just apologize a little bit for the sound of my voice in the interview, just trying to get the right hardware and equipment when I do these interviews over the internet and on mobile phones, etc. So it's not quite 100% on my end. And now, with no further ado, and for the very first time simulcast on both this podcast and the My Love of Golf podcast, we bring you Barnbougle, a virgin experience. Enjoy, guys. Enjoy listening. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we come once again to one of my favourite parts of the podcast, a segment of the podcast with Golf Chat here. It's with our friend of the podcast, the eminent interviewer of golf podcasting around the world, the Mike Willisey, the Ray Martin, the Andrew Denton, if you like, depending on which generation you come from. I've talked him up. Welcome to Golf Chat with Ross Flannigan. Welcome, Roscoe.
Steve, where do I go from there? That is unbelievable.
How's that for an intro?
No, that is unbelievable. And that's so far from reality. We're actually sitting here looking at each other because we're doing this via Zoom, which is nice.
We are.
Rather than via the phone. And I have gone bright red. And that's crazy to say that. Mike Willisey.
Mate, look, I have to, and to be fair, and the reason I say that, it's not just to throw away a couple of names, because you've done some incredible interviews of late. I've absolutely loved some of the interviews you've done late, mate. So well done. And some of them have been, there's Melbourne. Forgive me for forgetting some of the names. You can throw them in with the My Love of Golf podcast. But some of the names that you've done, there was Steve from the States, the greenkeeper superintendent from the States. Is that right?
Stephen Britton. So Frankston boy now taking on the grasses of the world, agronomy of the world.
Incredible story.
Over there.
That was a great listen.
So, yep, Steve Britton. Then there was Andy Marr, one of Australia's great
Andy Marr was great. What a great interview that was to listen to, mate.
Sports broadcasters. There was Melbourne Storm's very own Christian Welsh. He loves playing at Brookvale, by the way. He loves playing down the road from you at Brookvale. He loves that.
There you go, mate. And don't they have some cracker games with Mighty Seagulls and Melbourne Storm?
But just to finish off on the latest one, and it's a little bit relevant to this interview because it was with a chap who is, I don't exactly know how old Bob McCoy is, the real McCoy. You can find him on golfodyssey.net. Bob McCoy is, I have to say, he's mid-80s now. He undertook to play in 1997 the Golf magazine at that time. So it was the 1995 Top 100 list. In 1997, He left in April in Maine, where he was from, lives, and he went to play the top 100 courses in 100 days. All around the world. Not America, all around the world. Now, it's 1997. I can barely remember 1997, but I remember a couple of things. I was in Sydney. I was working. I just had my first sort of reasonable-sized job. A mobile phone was about the size of this computer. Email was maybe just starting. It was faxes. If you don't know what a fax is, go and Google what a fax was.
A facsimile. I believe it's the long version.
And letters and letter writing. And Bob was able to put this schedule together to play the top 100 in 100 days. You know, he'd played top 100s before through his travelling, but someone threw a challenge to him and he accepted, and he said, I'm going to do it in 100 days. That's what I can do next. And so it's an hour and 20 minutes of Bob telling the story of his travels around the world, and it's pretty fun to listen to.
Mate, that's one I'm yet to play catch up on. I've had a few other things happening at the moment with organising an industry golf event, and I'm really looking forward to that one. When I saw who it was and a little bit of the brief story behind the person behind, it was it's definitely on my next checklist to listen to. So, mate, like I said, that's why I've thrown those names up in terms of interviewing. So, mate, I think it's justified in my opinion. There you go.
Well, thank you, Stephen.
Mate, now we've got you on the podcast, and you did mention we're doing it via Zoom, so there's a little bit of interaction that, we'll see where the video ends up. Who knows, it could be like my foray into television where the wife and I were involved with Changing Rooms Australia. It was a blast when it went on to television. We got half a new house out of it, and then it was quickly wiped from television history. So we won't go there, but who knows where this video will end up.
Hey, the funny part of it, I had to find that out. I had to dig when I was doing some, stalking of you. I had to go and find that out. You didn't, it wasn't. It's not. It should be front and center on your profile. Changing Rooms.
It should be, and we had a whale of a time. Like I said, the wife and I had this experience that not many people get to, and it was incredible, and it was very full on. And we're digressing a little bit, but it was on TV for a short period of time, and then I think it got a few episodes past us on TV. So we got a start, which was great, but then it was quickly removed. It didn't cut the mustard for the ratings, and then I think all the back catalogues were removed from online as well. So we won't really talk about it much more than that.
I think actually I remember seeing it. To be fair, when I met you, I thought there's something familiar about this guy, and that was it. TV.
There you go. But
okay,
mate,
let's crack on.
Let's go. Let's get into it. It's a Tassie special we're talking about here on Golf Chat with yourself, mate. And you and I were virgins of this particular destination, and it's pretty obvious what we're going to talk about. It's Barnbougle Dunes, or that's how I pronounce it. Apparently, it's Barnbougle Dunes, which I find a little bit difficult to say. So I'm going to stick with Barnbougle. I've copped a bit of flack, but mate, we were both Barnbougle virgins. Now we're not. How was your first go?
Well, let's just start before to tell a little bit of the story how we got there. So, for me, yes, I was definitely a Barnbougle virgin. And as you know, and as some of the listeners for your podcast, my podcast we've been on before, know that I operate a golf retail premises in Melbourne. And for me, for many years now, I've travelled a little bit around the world, with my Scottish heritage to play some golf over there and Ireland and so on and so forth, which has been great. But, I'd be serving someone and someone would come up with a dozen, whatever balls they were, a bunch of tees and a glove and maybe a rain jacket. And it's usually a dead giveaway. I'd say, off on a golf trip, are we? Yep. And they go, yeah, going to Barnbougle, mate. Going to Barnbougle with a bunch of us going down on the plane from Air Adventure, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, fantastic. Have you been? I said, no, I've actually, what? You haven't been to Barnbougle? I said, I think I must be the only guy in Melbourne that hasn't been to Barnbougle. And I would tell, my staff got just fed up. Oh, here comes the Barnbougle joke again. He hasn't been to Barnbougle. And it was like 7 years of haven't been. And for me, it was just about finding the right time in work, life, and some people to go with. And when we talk about the people to go with, it wasn't a long time in the planning this Barnbougle. It was a little bit opportune because obviously in Melbourne we came out of lockdown and everyone was like fever pitch to get out there and do something. So one of my good golfing mates, Mike Caridi, and another friend of his, Nick, and another friend of theirs. So we've got three. I'll make the fourth. Let's go. And you and I were talking, or you rang me one morning. I was on the way into the city, and you said, mate, I don't know if it's too short notice or whatever, but I've got a spot in this Barnbougle trip. You should come. And literally, it was like within 24 hours, I'd had 2 invitations to Barnbougle, so it was meant to be. And it turns out, and I said, oh, mate, I'm already going in March. And I said, when are you going? You said, the 16, 17, 18, or whatever the dates was.
Yeah.
It was exactly the same time. So we were there.
It was quite uncanny, wasn't it? To, like you said, to have those things all fall into place at the same time and get 2 offers. Like, look, weird and very cool at the same time.
It was nice to share it together, and it was nice to see you down there when we were playing, I think on the the last day we were there, and you were maybe two groups ahead, and I popped my head up over a dune, and there was the big man in the orange shirt lurking in the marron grass looking for a lost Pro V.
Searching for one of many lost golf balls on that day. I think it was a windy day too, from memory. Mate, it was, and my story was a little bit similar to yours in that I have never really had the opportunity, and you find a time in your life when it's going to kind of work and you're going to get a chance to do it. And got an invitation from my brother, and he had a group of guys that were going down. And he said, look, we've got a couple of spots, or we've got a spot available. Would you, is this something that you're going to get a chance to take it? And I said, look, I've just had a newborn. It's tough. It's the wife and I are supporting each other at home with our little baby Savannah, and it's probably not the right time, to be fair. And then to Bree's credit, to my wife's credit, she said, look, you've always talked about this place. I don't know what it means. I can't think of an analogy that for her, she's like, I can't think of an analogy that's the same thing for me, but I know you've always talked about it being a bucket list and a trip you've always wanted to do. So what can we do to make it work? So we come up with something that was going to work for us, and it made it happen. And then I got that call from my brother that said, listen, we've had a guy drop out. Do you know anyone that might be interested in going? And then that conversation we had that morning, I still never forget it. I pulled over the side of the road and said, mate, I don't know if this is random or not, but, would you be interested? And you're like, I'm already going. And we worked out it was the same couple of days crossover.
Had you said it was like a month after, like if it turned out the way that I'd been, and had you said it was like a month after, I would have come, because, like in getting into it a little bit more, a lot of people ask me, how was it? What did you think? And, all of that sort of stuff. And it's very rare that I come away from a good golf course and the first thing I think about is, when am I going to go back? How soon can I go back? What can I do to make going back to this place a possibility? And that's how I feel and felt, and that's how I still feel about that wonderful experience at Barnbougle. So had you said a month later, we're going a month later, and I'd already been, I would have come. Yeah.
No, mate, I agree with you. And now, like you said, having been there and think about it retrospectively, what it is, and that probably leads us into starting to talk about Barnbougle and what we thought of it. I'll start off by saying that I struggle a lot with expectations from people when I hear them say, this is a great golf course, you've got to go and play it, and you've got to experience this one. And sometimes those expectations, and I try to put them to one side, but they're always there when you've spoken to people about it. I try to put them aside, and I get there, and every now and then I'll come to a place that meets those expectations or exceeds them. Doesn't happen very often, but I can name a couple off the top of my head, and it's Royal Adelaide, it's Peninsula Kingswood when I was fortunate to go to there. Barnbougle's one of them. It's Barnbougle. There's certainly a few around that meet or exceed those expectations. But I had for so long wanted to go to see Barnbougle and heard a lot about it and read a lot about it, being in the industry of greenkeeping. I've certainly heard a lot from the inside about it. And I wasn't expecting to still be blown away upon arrival the way that I was. And it's the trip down, right? We had a hell of a time. It's COVID still, where, I had 2 flights booked to get there, and one was axed and moved to the next day. I ended up getting the other one, which was a stopover in Melbourne from Sydney to get down, change flights, get to Launceston, get the bus to get up to Barnbougle. And there's an hour and a bit drive in that. I think it's an hour and a half nearly. And you get there and you walk out and you just go, what just happened? How did we get from rural Australia and all the beautiful countryside that it is, and it's logging country you drive through and farmland and all that, and you just arrive on the coast near Bridport and you just all of a sudden it's there. It's like someone just lifts the covers off your eyes and you just go, this is it. And how did this turn up here?
Steve, and you talked about wanting to talk to me because I got a little bit, and not a lot. Please, I'll qualify now. I'm not the most travel golfer that will listen to this. There's plenty of people that will be listening that have done every course around the world. Sure. I've done a little bit, but one of the I guess consistent things that I remember is when you drive through a town where there's a nice links destination. It's the same sort of thing. The reveal is part of the excitement.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like, and you think about St Andrews, when you drive into St Andrews and you get into the town, you just turn a little bit left, and all of a sudden this big peninsula of golf course, you know, because there's not just one course at the old course, there's, I think,
Yeah,
three
that's
on
right.
that peninsula of land. And it's a little peninsula of links land that sticks out into the ocean on one side and an estuary on the other side, much
Right.
like Barnbougle. You know,
Yeah, okay.
North Berwick. You know, you drive into the town, it's just town, old buildings, and turn left, and then it opens up, and there's a reveal of a golf course. Even in some of the other links courses, you drive, and then all of a sudden, bang, the National down here at you know, Cape Shank. You know, you drive through countries, you drive over the hill, and all of a sudden you see, wham, three big courses. So it felt like that, you know, like you're driving through somewhere, as you described, you know, forest land, countryside, and then you're into this beautiful duney links. You can hear the ocean, you can smell the ocean, the seagulls are there. It's very much traditional in that sense, in a links sort of experience for me.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. That's why I wanted to talk to you. Not only are we both first timers, but you've got that international experience through the British Isles to sort of, and in a way, I did want to try and talk to you about a little bit of comparison, and we might get to that a little bit later.
Yep.
As to some of those experiences, because it's kind of one of very few real genuine, or what people say is a genuine links experience that we have in Australia. We've got the sand belt, which isn't quite that, because it's not on the water's edge, it's not on the ocean and that sort of stuff, and it doesn't have that exact same feel. Whereas this is actual linked land. It's that from the agricultural area with the fertile soils to that sort of infertile, sandy, duney, sparse area that they can't really do much with, and it's not the beach either.
Yep.
So it is that, and yeah. So the reveal was there, and I love a driveway entrance. I love a driveway entrance, and that was the reveal. Was going through the rural towns, the rural farmlands, the logging areas up over a few of the hills to get to the northeast coast. And then you get to the driveway and you drive in, and then and you see it as you're coming in, and it's there. That's the first reveal of many that you experience at Barnbougle. And for me, not having experienced anything like that before, it was this amazing sense of, if this is the beginning, if this is my first step, what's the second step like?
Yeah.
You know, it was impressive.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the thing that stood out for me, and you'd seen the pictures, you know, that they've got the sign, the big sign there, which a lot of people stop and take a photo at. It's just a nice big sign. It says, you know, Barnbougle, and you know, the fences are farm fences. And, you know, the really nice thing, you know, if you want to talk about some of the little details around the place, the knickknacks, or as some people refer to them, the coarse furniture. You know, Richard Sattler built all of those. You know, he and his team built them all from stuff on the property. You know, the T markers and the post and rail fences and all that sort of stuff just came from so there's nothing over the top. It's all very understated and very in sync with the landscape. And, you know, they haven't tried to make it, you know, over effusive in terms of all of those sort of coarse furnitures that you can put on golf courses. And for me, that's an immediate sort of double tick. Because you really are just focusing on, you know, that reveal and that landscape just set itself apart and stand out, because that's what you want. That's what you want to stand out.
Totally, I agree. And it keeps it grounded. It keeps it earthy. It keeps it, like you said, natural to the local environment. All of those things. There's nothing that's what kind of makes it feel 100 years old already, right? Don't you reckon?
Oh, absolutely. I missed the big reveal that you experienced, because I had my head in my backpack trying to dig out some clothes, because, you know, our trip down there was on Virgin from Melbourne down to Launceston, picked up a rental car. Rental cars aren't cheap in Tassie, by the way, just let listeners know. So if you can pre-plan and pre-book and get a deal on a rental car if you are going that way, makes sense. And it also, please factor that in if you're thinking about flying direct with Air Adventure or someone like that to direct. You know, factor that stuff in, because anyway. But I had my head in my backpack trying to get my golf clothes out, because I was essentially got changed in the car, because we were like straight on the tee. So it was like, right, let's go. And the boys went up and checked in, and I was getting changed, and all the bags out of the bags in the back of the Triton Ute, and off we went. And it was like, oh, here we are, we're here. So yeah,
mate. Look, it was that's the first step. That's the first part of the experience that is Barnbougle. And look, I'll say it now, this conversation that we're talking about today in this interview is it's going to be a little bit off the cuff. I want it to come across as raw to the listeners where they're going to try and, I want to try and talk about it in a sense that they're going to experience it as well when they go there, if they haven't been already. So, mate, what are your thoughts on, let's start off before we get to the golf course, because we were staying on site and we stayed at the dune side of things. I'm not sure where you ended up staying, but we were in which was cool, the little Brighton beach houses, I call them, because I've been down there to that part of Melbourne where they've just got these little huts and they're cool sitting above the practice green. It's about 150 metres odd from the clubhouse at the dunes course, and the little 2-bedroomers to stay on site. And I think it was probably one of the most cost-effective ways to stay on site at Barnbougle. It was, again, another one of those elements that was just in sync with the place, right? It was just kind of, you look at it and you go, of course that's what we're staying in.
Yeah. I didn't stay there. I stayed over on the Lost Farm side, but you know, the early memory of Barnbougle and talking about trips, because Barnbougle Dunes was built before Lost Farm, so that was the first style of accommodation that you could have there.
Yeah.
So my memories and looking at it and Googling it were all about those little box style beach boxes. I've got them at the end of the street here at the beach near where I live. So I get why you call them that, but they're obviously bigger and obviously much more well fitted out. But I think there's 18 of them I counted, and just running down sort of beside the first tee, there's a little chipping and putting green. So I could imagine you blokes were out there with a cold one, having a bit of a chip and a putt and a chat, and had been across to the dunes bar there, which you get a great sort of bar style meals. It's a beautiful, inviting. There's an open fireplace. All the trophies. I don't know if you noticed the trophies of all of the groups that go down there that leave their trophies.
Which disappoints me, because I'd heard about this afterwards and I was like, damn, why didn't I see that?
Yeah, so there's all these trophies there, and they're weird and wonderful trophies. It's interesting to see the eclectic nature of how us golfers think in those trophies alone. The names that they have for their tournaments, and I think there was even like stuffed birds or magpies, and there was all weird and wonderful things. But to think that you've got that just 100 metres away, you've got your accommodation, the first tee just there. Not too many places in the world you can do that, really.
No, and again, for me, that was another tick. I'm looking at it going, well, that's perfect. That just works. The look of it, the feel of it. It's 2 bedrooms in each one, plenty of space for a few people, and plenty of those little huts right next to the clubhouse, and that was probably something that I didn't notice because we played the dunes first and then went to the Lost Farm, was the differences in that there is still a resort. So if you wanted that style of accommodation, it's available to you. And I like that there's choice. I like that it covers and yes, the farm was built afterwards, but I like that they've brought that into the property so that, for someone that prefers that style of accommodation, it's there. If you're going with the wife, you can go and stay up there, and it has a day spa at the Lost Farm. But the dunes is more for just the golfer, if that's the right way of saying it, that wants to get in there and stay on site and experience everything. The clubhouse has got, good meals that are affordable, that it's not an over-the-top restaurant where it's upper class or anything like that. It's great food, great offers of beers and whatever behind the bar, very cash. And all of that, for me, was very appealing to anyone who wants to just be able to go down there and experience it in the probably the most accessible form of being able to do so.
Yeah, well, we stayed across at Lost Farm. Once again, I put it in the hands of Magic Mike Caridi, who's been there, I think, 7 or 8 times. So there was no one more experienced to organise a trip than him in my sphere. And we stayed across there. It is more of a resort / hotel, but very nicely done, understated.
Yeah.
It's not over. It's in sync with the landscape. Put it that way. That's how I would describe it. Nice rooms, little balconies looking out over the course. Once again, onto a putting green.
Nice.
2 double bedrooms, 2 double beds in our room with a big separate divider, so you could divide it across.
Yeah, cool.
Very, very comfortable, and then a wonderful restaurant, and then over on Lost Farm you've got the famous sports bar. Where you can.
And isn't that a good spot?
where you can have a bet, and there's all the screens up, and you can get pizza there. It's beautifully made pizza. Just the lady or the guy pouring the beer is making the pizza, and it's just fantastic. Yeah. Sunset over out there to the west, and looking out over Lost Farm, it's just magnificent. Magnificent.
And those are the details that I think you don't appreciate when you're there so much, as when you think back and you go, why was it that it worked so well? Why was it that not only did the dunes work and it was built first, then you go to the farm, and we went to the restaurant up there and had a feed, and we went to the sports bar and had a feed, did all that sort of stuff, had a few drinks after we played the farm. All, like you said, it's built in and it sits well to the property. It's not a big, eyesore sticking out off the top of a dune. It's beautifully done, beautifully designed. It's well appointed, and it's got all the elements of fun as well inside that. So there's just so much to take in that you probably don't realise it until, I've got to be honest, I'm still digesting my experience.
Yeah. And I don't know if you noticed, but a couple of little things that I'll point out while we're talking about the surroundings and before we get into the golf experience. The restaurant up there at Lost Farm, I think we had dinner at the same time. I think you guys came in after and sat down the way, and a bit later. We were a bit before you. And I don't know if you noticed, but it was all Richard Sattler's family. A lot of Richard Sattler's family there working
at the time, but I noticed afterwards. Yeah,
I think I haven't met Biz, but I think Biz and her sister Penny were there, and I think Penny is the general manager of Lost Farm, and Biz does a lot of the marketing, and Stephen, their brother, was working there, and just making everyone feel wonderful. And that was the other part of all of the staff there were just fantastic. That just, if there is that traditional Tasmanian hospitality, it is embodied in Barnbougle Dunes very much so. And, it's very hard to knock anything about that experience. Roscoe and the other guy in the Lost Farm, and then Jeepers Weepers, Daniel, maybe Daniel Damien over there in Barnbougle Dunes Pro Shop.
That's right. Yeah.
Just couldn't, wanted to know more about who you were and where you were from than tell you about their place. They were as interested as you were about them, and it was great. And so the whole thing is just it's what you expect from any family owned business that you sort of subscribe to or go towards because you like that way. It's very much made you feel like that, and not this big corporate sort of thing. And I've seen that. I've dropped in it, like a Donald Trump course in Ireland at Doonbeg, and it felt different. It was very corporatized. It was very systemized. It was a different place, but it just lacked that little bit of what I would expect in that Irish sort of country pub type feel. It was just very regimented, and Barnbougle was like what I expected, when you're in Ireland sort of thing.
Yeah, and like you said, the family works there. They're involved in it. They're part of it, and it makes it feel homely. Like you probably don't realise. It's like turning up, and you don't know. We didn't know anyone when we turned up, but everyone was just like, how can we help? Information you wanted to know. This is some little tips and tricks around the way, and what can we do for you afterwards, and all this sort of stuff. Like I can't remember the name of the guy running the bus between the two properties, which is a free little shuttle bus that goes between back and forth. And he was giving us inside stories, and you just ask any question. They're just happy to tell you what's going on and background stories about how the place came to be and all this sort of thing. And it was just like catching up with an old friend you hadn't seen for a long time. It's kind of how it felt. It was amazing. And they're things you can't teach either. They have to be people. And some of the staff are friends of Richard. Some of them, you talked about the course furniture, and I later found out that I think is it Reg's hut that's out in the back of the fourth on the Dunes course. Well, I met him out the back doing work, building the bits of timber when I was getting a tour around the back with the superintendent, Phil Hill. And we bumped into Richard, who was out the back just doing a little bit of work and making sure everything was going properly and solving problems as he does. And then he's just like, here's, this is Reg, and he's built all the furniture around here and all the, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, and he's there great. Just doing work. And happy, hey, nice to meet you. How are you? Enjoying your time here? And I was like, this is incredible. And that come from Richard. It come from Reg. anyone. Phil, it didn't matter who it was. They were all the same, friendly, homely, accepting, and very inviting type of people, which made the experience incredible.
I just dawned on me. I hadn't really thought about it, but I just had this flashback of my childhood. And as you know, I'm from the Hunter Valley, where your brother's got a place. And it reminded me of my childhood upbringing in and around Tyrrells. There
you go. Yep.
It very much felt like that, like maybe not Tyrrells now because it's changed, but Tyrrells of the old, where Murray Tyrrell would be always there, making sure that everything was all right. Bruce Tyrrell, his son, was there. My dad was there, and my dad was very much a disciple of Murray Tyrrell in the way that he operated his business, and it felt like that family. People out the back in the workshop. They had cows, they had wine, they had other produce, and
exactly right.
The guy that would be shoeing the horses, was bottling the wine, and then all that sort of stuff. So it reminded me of that. It was great. I loved it.
And all that. Like you said, look, I love the bush. I love rural energy. I love the rural experience and what people bring in a rural feel and a rural setting. And I think Barnbougle just oozes all of that. And I think that's another reason why it's such a wonderful experience as well. So, these are all parts of what makes the trip there so memorable, I think. Now, mate, let's move into the golf side of the life, which is the main reason we're all travelling there. We're not travelling down there for a feed.
We're 29 minutes in. Hope everyone stayed this far, mate.
And it is all part of it.
Yeah.
The Dunes and the Lost Farm, two different courses, opposite sides of the. I can't even remember the name of the cut that's made through there. That water body cut that divides both. It's a man-made cut that divides both courses. I've got it written down here somewhere, but they are done by two different architects. I played the Dunes first, played the farm second, went back and played the Dunes again and then again because we were staying on that side. I don't know which way around you did it. What was your thoughts after having played? Let's start off with the Dunes. What were your thoughts and feels about some of the details and some of the things you experienced playing the Dunes for the very first time?
Yeah, I had a couple of surreal moments of thought early on in the piece. Once I'd sort of got changed and got settled into that first hole, par 5, and very much like a lot of traditional links, the first hole, and we're not going to do a hole by hole, so don't worry about that. But the first hole is quite gentle. There's a little bit of a blind tee shot over the hill there, and it takes you out. But it's a gentle par 5. The second's a little gentle, and then you start getting into the real links country, and that's quite typical of a lot of good links courses. They start you off fairly easy, and then they go wow, and then they might finish you a little easier as well. But first thing is I sort of remember taking a moment, and we talked about having travelled, and I haven't been able to see family and my wife's family in Scotland, so we haven't done that, and I've been missing that sort of links golf travel experience. I do distinctly remember sitting there, maybe on the second hole, and feeling the grass on my feet and smelling and just closing my eyes. And I just remember thinking that this is as close as I'm going to get for a while to being in Scotland. So embrace this moment, because that's exactly what it felt like. There's a thing about walking on fescue and playing golf on fescue. And as you said early on, there's not that many true links golf courses in Australia. And there's only a few with proper fescue fairways. Barnbougle is obviously that on both sides. And walking on fescue, if you haven't done that, and if you haven't been to Barnbougle, you probably haven't, is a different feeling. And I just remember stopping myself going, this feels like Scotland. On my feet, my connection to the earth felt like Scotland. I know this is starting to sound a little bit deep and a bit mushy, but that's exactly how I felt. And it was a little bit emotional at the time because, I was realizing what we had missed. But then, when you go back to the course, wow, it is every bit of links golf that you'll ever want and more. It delivers. And, I've heard a lot of podcasts and a lot of discussion, is it more Scotland? Is it more Ireland? And when you talk Scotland v Ireland, there are a lot of similarities, but there are a couple of, I think, ways of distinguishing some of the courses. Like, depending on where you are in Scotland, a lot of the links land is a little flatter and the undulations are a little bit more subtle, a little bit more, pot bunker use, scattered all around, and you can and can't see, but it's still very, undulating, but maybe not to scale. Certainly some of the golf that I've experienced in Ireland was more akin to what we saw at Barnbougle Dunes. the height,
Yeah, right.
the height of the dunes, the depth of the dunes, the reveals. Where you've got fairways tucked in and around, and dunes in the middle of fairways. Like the most famous one of all time, I think, of dunes in the middle of fairway is the maybe the fourth hole at Lahinch, which is still a Tom Morris original design. That's one of the holes that they never changed, and it's got a big dune in the middle of the fairway. It's only a short par 5. That's called Klondike, but a big dune in the middle of the fairway. Now there's a little bit of that in some of the holes there at dunes, where the dunes pop out into the fairway, and you've got to really either craft a shot depending on the wind, over it, around it, to the side of it, and plot your way depending on the conditions and what type of shots you're capable of making. And that's another element. You've got to have every shot in your bag if you want to play sort of well around there, if you give a damn about your score. So for me, that dunescape there just reminded me very much of some of the courses I played in Ireland, like Naran and Portneuf. Some of the holes out the back there, and the back 9 at Tralee had a little bit of that sort of going on in some respects. People might challenge me on that, but it certainly had that massive wow. Is it a course for me for every day? I probably would maybe play the other side every day if I had to have an everyday course down there. But
being the farm, you mean?
Yeah. But it's one that we played it twice on the last day. We played it 3 times in total when we were there, and we were only going to play it once on the last day we were there. We went round again, and it never got old. Despite how tired our legs were, we thought we'd just play maybe 9 holes, and then we just kept going and going. It was great. So I don't know if that starts to answer your question, Steve.
Look, it's a really long answer, to be honest. I think anyone who's played there for the first time, when you try and describe your first experience, you're right, and does it answer the question? Look, I think it does. I think we talked about how does it compare in the world landscape of link-style golf courses, and there you go. You've given some good points to, and I've got no idea, so I can't do that. But I agree with you. It's good to actually hear you talk about how it made you feel like it was close to home, if being in Scotland for you with that Scottish heritage, and you had that feel, that walk on the fescue fairways, that the smell, I suppose, of the salt as well in the air, and just that wind coming off the water, and the sights and sounds and that sort of stuff as well. It is different to anything I've ever experienced in golf as well. And I kind of know what you're saying, and you've got those comparisons to draw on. For me, it's like driving a car for the first time. You're like, what's all this, and where's this going, and how does that work? And I've got to try and react to different feelings, or whether it be the wind, and whether I've played on a golf course in the Blue Mountains, all of them. It's very windy being a kilometre in the sky, but also being on the coast where Barnbougle is, it gets very windy as well. But it's the way it works and eddies around some of those dunes, and it feels different on the ground, and it's so different up in the air. And the movement, the thing that surprised me, having seen lots of photos and never been to the British Isles for golf, is that the way that the dunes landscape is. In fact, I've been on plenty of coastal areas and dunes that would be fishing and all that sort of stuff, and travelled to them. But when you have a golf course routed in amongst sand dunes, it's really hilly all of a sudden. Yeah. And it's not that the course plays hilly, but they're all there. Like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And the walk between, so Tom Doak designed, and his team, and Mike Clayton, Tom Doak and Mike Clayton designed the dunes course for those that are interested in that side of things. I think there's a lot more movement in the fairways on the dune side than there is on the Lost Farm side. And you touched briefly on, would you play it every day? Would you be happy to play it every day? I think it would be very brutal to play every day at the dunes course, because it is quite tough. Did I absolutely adore it? For sure. And you're right, I agree with you. I think the Lost Farm is a more gentle experience for everyday play. You don't do that anyway, because it's not that type of a golf course. But there's a lot of movement in there that I didn't realise, and you see it on photos and you see it in videos, and nothing like that ever gives you a sense of reality. When you're there, things are hidden. Like there's you. If you're on the left side of the fairway, you can be blinded by this towering dune. And you've got to train. If you've never played the course for the first time, it does get in the road and you don't know how to play it. And you'll walk after you've played the shot and, I could have played there and run it around. So there's things built into the course, which I love, about running the ball around in areas or hitting it long and you could allow for it to roll back, like the first.
Yep.
A gentle opening par 5, which is great, but it's super receptive. Once you see what you can do, you can hit it long up the back of the first and it'll roll back down to the green. And so when you're playing into the wind on that hole, which usually the prevailing is sort of northwesterly, west-northwest, you can over-club it, knowing that you can hit into that breeze and it come back. And there's a lot of that really built in, I found, to the green complexes at the dunes, where once you started to learn, and you talked about one of your team members has been there 7 times, you're going to know where you can do that. And I think that's really, really cool. That's a really fun part of the dunes course that I really enjoyed as well. But I was overwhelmed by the movement in the ground. That was the part that really got me.
Yeah, well, I think it takes once you've played it once, like I was just in awe. But you start to realise that you can take advantage of that ground movement and the ground shapes and flows. And Tom and Mike, as great architects they are, they're taking references from the stuff that they've seen overseas. The Great Links courses that they've travelled the world to go and absorb and embrace, and then try and recreate as much of that as they can when they give us Barnbougle. And that's a really important part of links golf is having the ability to understand the ground game. Benefit of fescue fairways, the ball just bounces off and runs up and rolls pretty true. And if you can, you play that sort of shot, so you're keeping it out of the wind, the course is there to give you a little bit of a hand. But you have to be, you still have to make a good shot. It's not going to make it easier because you're not hitting the ball up into the wind. It gives you a little bit of a hand if you can understand and see and read and interpret where the ground's going, and you can use it to your advantage.
Yep, and I think knowing how windy it can get, and I experienced it, I think you did too. We went from day one, which I was there the day before you, where there was next to no wind, and that was why it was such an interesting experience. The next day, I found when we were playing, it was nearly a 4-club wind into the prevailing, and holes like the 4th, which is a shortish par 4, with that giant bunker, became drive a 5-iron, drive a 6-iron into the wind. But if you play it along the ground in other holes like the 3rd, the wind doesn't really affect you at all. And that's why I'm thinking about the golf course is it's acceptable, or it's receptive to all types of players. Apart from the fact that you can't get a cart unless you have a medical certificate, which I get. It's receptive to people who can't hit it in the air for a great deal of the year, who can't fly at 150 metres. Yep. So anyone can experience golf there, which was really fascinating as well, because a lot of modern designs get lost in waters and waste carries and all that sort of stuff. And they're there if you play from the back tees, the waste carry. But you get to pick where, and that's the other thing I like, is you get to pick where you want to play from. They don't tell you where to play from. And I've banged on about this forever and a day, that you should experience the golf course how you want to experience the golf course, not how people tell you to experience the golf course, because it's a personal thing. And the first thing that when we rolled up was, where do you want to hit off from, guys? How good's that? I've already gone, I'm accepted into this place. So I can choose my own adventure. It was brilliant.
Where did you hit off from?
we played from is it the terracottas?
Yeah.
I've got, hang on, here we go. The terracotta one. That's my little thingy.
Yeah, we played terracotta too. I went and had a look at some of the back tees and in those 4-club wins that you refer to. It's serious stuff.
Some of them are long.
But even talking about the wind that you said. So we missed that first day, which was no wind. But according to Magic Mike Caridi, even the winds that we experienced on the days that we were there together were like light zephyrs compared to what he's experienced.
Wow! Really?
The holes and hole numbers for me in my sort of lack of numeracy skills, memory sort of don't gel that quickly. But there's over on the Lost Farm, there's a par 4, the short one. Fairway rises around to the right, and there's quite a big carry, but it's only a short par 4. I hit 5-wood long on the first time, and then 3-iron to pin high, just in that sort of Biarritz sort of swale on the left side. Still made a 5. But he said when he played there the previous time, he showed me where he hit driver to, and he still had like he hit a driver like 110 metres into the wind.
And that's it, right? It's such a different golf course every day. Both of them are different golf courses every day, which is what I thought was really interesting as well. And to design those courses to be playable in those winds. And don't get me wrong, I say it first out, I'm terrible in a strong wind. I can't control my ball, probably because I just try and hit it too hard all the time. But I'll always go for broke, and I'll probably pull it off about 10% of the time. And then the other, I'm cursing why the wind is so strong. I've got to learn that skill. But you can play. That's the beauty of it, is that I found you can, if you wanted to, and not be an idiot like me most of the time, you can nudge your way around that golf course in those really strong windy days and play. It's not unplayable. I'm sure there are winds that it will be, but generally speaking, it's more often playable in all of those windy days. And I've played plenty of courses where you can get a really windy day and they are unplayable.
I think I've seen some wind down there on some of the videos that my customers have shown me that I would say it's almost unplayable. If you had a choice, if you're there, you're there. You just go out and, you got to,
sure.
If you're going to get wet, you got to swim, you got to get wet. But I've seen some, flag bending winds on videos. What was your favourite part about, in a snapshot, your favourite parts of the Barnbougle Dunes?
The favourite parts of the Dunes course I found, and this might sound a bit odd, I found the design where this is what I picked up. Now, I haven't had time to think about it and go back and really think about it in detail, but the holes that went west and northwest, and holes like the 4th, the Tom's Little Devil, the little par 3, the flick par 3,
yep.
Even the 3rd, the 1st is not a very long par 5. So all those holes facing that direction, and the couple coming home, 17, 18, were on paper relatively short holes. And the holes in the easterly direction on paper were relatively long holes. And I talk about the front because I played the front so many times, not only just when we played the 18 holes, but there's the 5th is a long par 3 as well. So the easterly direction facing holes are a little bit longer on paper. So when it comes to holes like the 8th as well, which is a great golf hole. So when it comes to the prevailing wind, you could kind of see why more often than not it was blowing from the west-northwest, that those short holes on paper, so like the 4th is, I think, 200 and, let's say it's 270 metres, 290 metres, it plays 340, right, into most of the wind. And the other holes that are long are downwind. So the short holes are into the wind, the long holes are downwind. While I was there playing, I got a message from a follower on Instagram and said when they played, the wind was the opposite and it was blowing from the east. And I said to my playing partners, that's going to be tough. Imagine playing all those long holes like the 8th, like the long par 3 5th into the wind. Well, that happened to us on, I think, our last day. It was about a 3-club wind into an easterly. So holes like 8, I had driver, and I was still having a shot into the green that wasn't a wedge.
Yeah.
And so I love that the design of the holes was short into the wind. On paper, you're like, I can capitalise on this. No, you can't really. You've still got to play good golf. So for me, that was a little nuance that I really liked and I enjoyed, because I sort of go on paper more than I look at it and go in my head what I'm going to capitalise on before I get out there. So I stand on the tee, it's 290 metres, no worries. I've got a 3 on this, par 4, and I walk away with 6.
Is that the one where the green, there's a sway, a big sort of hollow before the green, and the green's up?
That's it.
Yeah.
Is that the 8?
I'm just trying to remember. I've got my
The long par 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that hole.
Oh, that was
so hard.
Yeah, and the big dune on the right of the green, the little bunker there. Yeah.
I climbed that dune one afternoon. I just went walking, and this is what I love doing. I just walked, and I walked the course, and I just went everywhere, and I went bush bashing in the dunes, up the marram grass and up the top of things. And I got a message from Tom Zoke on one of my things, and he said he hadn't seen that angle before up the top of the dune next to the 8th. I climbed it. I see something hill. I've got to climb it to get a good photo or video. And I've taken a 360 video and a photo from up there, and it looks incredible. And the cloud, it was overcast. It just looked like, I don't know, we could have been anywhere. It was like something out of the Lord of the Rings. It was magnificent.
Yeah, it's a tough hole. Like, I remember. I think I can't remember what. Like, I might have hit driver off the deck at one on the same day. I reckon. I reckon I hit a really good drive to the top. It's the plateaued fairway, which I quite liked. So it had a nice little target on the left-hand part of the fairway. So I hit a good shot there. And I think on one hole, maybe I hit 2-iron and I pulled it left into the marram. So I might have lost my ball there. And then the next time I played, I just had to hit it out to the below the green and chip it up the hill. But I like that little grass pathway that leads up the hill. That's very, very, very Irish.
It looks like a cattle track, right? When you see cattle tracks out on farms, I've seen plenty of them out west and regional New South Wales up hills, where it's just this little narrow level patch where their hooves have just benched it out a little bit.
When you go to a place like the Hinch, they've got fescue paths and they're beautifully manicured, like they cut them with every day with greens mowers. From tee to green. But in other areas, you've got paths like that everywhere, and it just reminded me of little paths around the Hinch that weave up in and around the dunes that just take you to the places where you might have hit it, but they're not the main pathways. But
little adventures.
Yes.
So mate, for me, it was that short into the wind, long down for the prevailing, and the same with the back nine. You got 10, 11, which are long holes. Then you hit 12 as a short par 4 that you think is drivable. Same, I think, with 15. I think is a short one along the water out the back. Mm-hmm. For me, the back was a little bit less memorable because we didn't play it so many times because we were staying in a little hut. So every afternoon we just played the front nine of the dunes. I only played the back nine once. I think it was. We played, twice. And I played the front nine about 4 or 5 times. But that was what I remembered, was short holes that were short on paper that weren't, and long holes that were long on paper that were, that played. Yeah. It was great. I love that little detail. 15
is the one with the big drop-off on the left-hand side, the big swale on the left-hand side of the green. Yeah.
Yep. And you got the cut, that water cut, the creek between the two courses down the far western end of the property.
Yep.
Eastern end of the property, sorry.
I think I tried to drive that green without success most times.
I tried to drive par 5s with no success. I tried to drive that with no success. I was trying to do a Bryce. I think we all were at some point where we thought it was reachable.
Once again, I can't remember which hole it was, but Magic Mike Caridi hit a shot. I think he drove one of the short par 4s twice, like with his predominant left to right prevailing shot shape. He just started the ball southwest, ended up coming back northeast, and just dobbed it on the green 2 times. It was pretty impressive.
So, mate, what was your takeaway from the dunes?
Oh, the par 3s for me, like par 3s for me always stand out because I sometimes struggle with them. Like for me, they're makers or breakers of good scores for me, because as a lower handicapper, you need to be parring those and taking opportunities to get birdies. And if your game's anywhere near off, then just mark down a bogey. And so to stand on the par 3s like Tom's Little Devil and 90 meters. I think we played it. Well, we definitely played it 1, 2, 3 times, and we might have on that second day we played it twice, had a couple of extra shots, and the best person to play it in our group was the one that had the worst handicap. He just played a perfect shot, dobbed it up near the pin, and he hit the only shot that he was capable of, just like a normal wedge, and just dropped it near the pin and sunk the birdie in. And I was trying to flight one under the wind. I was trying to hit it into there and let it come down. I just had no chance. Like I was over the back twice. I was in the bunker once. But what a great little hole. So, and then what's the first par 3? Is that the 5th?
The 5th, the long par 3 5th.
Yeah. So once again, it sets up for me a nice little knockdown fade. With a reasonable.
And it is, you play it around the far left. You can swing it right out And with that down breeze, you can just carry it. It's got some big slopes on the left, right up in the high surrounds that can feed back down to the green. Yeah, you're right.
So Magic Mike Caridi played his, Malinga slinger from left to right, ended up about 5 feet, and I'll just hit a knockdown. I'll try and just draw it over the right and just let it come back down. But no, that wasn't the right way to play it. So watch your playing partners as well. If they've been there before, watch what they do and do what they do.
Yes, it is helpful, even though you think you've got it licked and you can do something else. There's a reason why they're playing it the way they're playing it.
But as you say, the off-course stuff as well. That reveal of the walkway that everyone talks about from 4 round to 5 up to Reg's hut there. You if you haven't been there, you don't know exactly what's coming because you're just walking up a dune and you don't know fully how close you are to the water. And you just walk up there through a dune, and then all of a sudden you've got this beautiful, bass straight blue water gently lapping on the sands. A little hut there. If you go in the hut there's a whole heap of history.
Little stories
about the land and the local area, which is great. I took some photos. I was holding the people back reading it, so I just took some photos of that. I don't know, little things like that, mate. I just loved it all.
Oh, mate, exactly right. And I wish I'd have been there for another week, if I'm being honest. But they're all the details. And that walk from the 4th green to the 5th tee, everyone talks about. And again, one of those expectations that I had, and it far exceeded what that was, because I was on the 4th green and I'm like, wow, what a golf hole. I'm walking up the back thinking how good that hole was. Could I have played it better? What am I going to do when I play there in a couple of days again? And then you're walking through those 2 dunes and up the path and you see the hut and you just go, whoa, this is the edge of the state. Yeah. It's the edge of the island.
So, Steve, from an agronomy perspective, having seen fescue, I'm not sure if it was your first time or whatever, but having now seen it and played on it, thoughts?
Look, we grew fescues and rye, but in the mountains, cool season grasses, but they were in amongst, so we call them in amongst cooch, and the cooch was a nurse grass. So you had this change of the season. So you'd have cooch in summer and fescues and ryegrass in winter. It wasn't straight fescue. What I loved about, I think there's a sign, if you might recall, as you walk to the first tee, it says something like we don't use sand here or something. I can't remember exactly what the sign said, because you don't carry sand buckets.
I think it says replace your divots because they grow back.
Yeah. So all the way around, so there's very, very minimal thatch. When you have cooch and warm season grasses, there's a really big, thick mat of thatch and root matter and stolons and rhizomes and all that sort of stuff. And it comes out as carpet if it's a little bit soggy. Otherwise, your club more or less bounces a little bit off that medium in the top part of the soil. Fescue doesn't have that. It doesn't really have that really thick surface just below the turf leaf. So you're taking rolls. And my brother, you might have seen that he loves hitting good wedges, and he hits the ball first and then he takes about a metre of turf afterwards. It rolls up nicely and you could take it away if you wanted to. But he was taking out these big, long rolls, and any shot you hit where you skimmed it, you were taking just it might have been 3 or 4 inches long, and you pick it up and you put it back, and they do grow back. And that's what I found was really interesting about the surface, and how the club interacted with it. And then in turn, because it doesn't have that thatch, you have a better ground game. It doesn't have a cushion to take away and give. And I can think of an extreme example, which is a lot of Sydney courses have kikuyu around their greens. A lot of people know it's very spongy and that's that feel. Fescue doesn't have that. So you've got a very minimal thatch interaction with the golf ball. So it's more on the ground. So the soil's there. So if it's wet, and we had a bit of a wetter season this year, and the boys were all saying how soft Barnbougle was playing compared to normal, I still found it had a good ground game compared to what I've experienced here in New South Wales, certainly along the coast and up into Queensland. So from an agronomy perspective and how that interacts with golf, there is a distinct difference in how the grass grows and how in turn your ball is really landing on, and that's why it'll firm up a lot quicker. You'll get a lot more run, and that ground game, as you get to a drier or a more normal year of rainfall, it will interact better You'll get a little bit more run out of it, and you'll get more rolling, and these things will take effect so much more again. I loved it for the first time I've experienced it, and I know some of the sandbelt courses they've got cooch and that sort of stuff around there, and that's as good as you're going to get in terms of a competitive equivalent to fescue is a cooch, because it grows quite thin, but at the same time it's not fescue.
No, it's nothing like it.
In terms of, you try and get the run of the ball as best you can, it deals with the temperatures so much better. That's why a lot of Victorian courses on the sandbelt have cooch. It's easier to manage in summer, and you still get 40-degree temperatures in Melbourne. You don't get that in Tassie.
Yeah.
So they can have this experience that the British Isles have, and it is better, again, for me, what it gives you in that ground game, the way that the ball, you can sweep, the interaction with that soil. There's a lot about it to like. And look, near where we are in the Blue Mountains, where I used to work and grow up, they're doing a renovation to Blackheath Golf Club, and I'll throw to that quickly because they're getting fescue out of Melbourne for their green surrounds.
Yeah, right.
So this is where golf courses are moving if they can, and the mountains has a cool climate. They still get mid-30-degree temperatures in the peak of summer, but you can keep it alive for short periods, not like Sydney or Melbourne. And Tassie's got that short periods of heat and long periods of cool. So fescue I found it beautiful. You can putt off it. We're looking at putting from 30-odd metres away.
and that's, when you think about, just to go back to the British Isles for a sec, that's so many people putt from 30-odd metres away, because to chip the ball, you just described what happens there. You're chipping in the ball bounces, and it's not as receptive to the spin. You don't spin a ball on a links green like you do on a sandbelt green.
Not at all.
The ball bounces, and I remember the first time I played over there, you throw in a high wedge and the ball just springs up and bounces and rolls through the back, and how did that happen? What's going on here? And you've got to readjust. But if anyone wants to, hasn't played off fescue, it is, for me, the best surface in the world to play off. And if you're wondering what these big Parmigianas that Steve's talking that his brother was rolling out. So if you think about some of the opens that you've seen on TV, around Muirfield and St Andrews, and you've seen those divots, those perfect divots fly out, which you may not have ever been able to achieve that perfect divot flying out, and you see someone pat it back. That's fescue at work. That nice little perfect, $2 note size divot that just flies out, and you just put it back down, and away you go.
Are you showing your age talking about $2 notes, mate? Is that?
Well, I started it with faxes. I'm not sure if $2 notes were there when faxes were around, but yeah, exactly right. So that's what fescue does, and it really is the best surface. And in Australia, there's only a handful of courses that you can get that. I think some of Port Fairy is fescue. I think some of the fairways at Port Fairy, when you get up to maybe 10 of fescue, but it's a mixed blend of maybe cooch and fescue up there.
That's the common mix, to be fair, because it deals with the heat tolerance.
Yeah. Greg, the June, Moona Links, the Greg Norman course, I think might be fescue.
Okay.
13th Beach course is fescue. I remember the first time I played there, and I remember saying to one of the members, I said, my wedge game was just better here. The club was going through the ground a bit better. He said, it's because we got fescue. And I thought, yeah, sorry.
And that's it. There isn't that thickness of root matter in the surface that you get with a rhizomatous plant like any warm season grass. That's how they grow, and you don't have that. So, like I said, it's that interaction with the club, but also there's less friction from not as dense a sward as cooch grass as well. It kind of is, but isn't in the way that they grow. But you can putt from further out because it's almost like a green surface. Is the way that when you mow fescue, similar to mowing sort of poa or wintergrass and bent grass, they're cool season grasses. So they grow flat. That's why we use them as green surfaces, because they're very fine leaf and they grow in a way that you can manicure them and maintain them as a putting surface. Fescue is the same. Fescue is the green surfaces at Barnbougle. So there's this continuity. You're going from fairway to green. So, and this is what people need to understand, is it's the same, essentially the same grass from fairways to greens. And that's why they perform in a similar way just a little bit of a longer leaf on fairways, gives you a little bit more friction, but that's why it allows you to putt from 30 metres away.
Well, old Tom Morris, when he was building St Andrews, Lahinch, and a lot of other courses in and around the British Isles, that's what they were doing.
Yep,
they were
exactly right. And we went engineering and breeding, grasses for better performance. But again, Australia doesn't have that climate. The only place that really has that climate is Tasmania, King Island, anywhere south of Victoria, which only leaves one state, or high country, which is up the Snowy Mountains or any of the high country through Victoria. We don't really do a lot of golf through those parts, and the Blue Mountains. And the Southern Highlands out of Sydney as well. So, those courses don't do it. For mine, they're missing out. Blackheath is going through a change, and that's thanks to Harley Cruz as well, and some of his guidance in what he believes will help a golf course experience. Southern Highlands out of Sydney and the Blue Mountains out of Sydney, they should all be doing this. And there's no reason why, there actually is no reason why they can't. It's just, in my opinion, it's laziness from the clubs and not knowing anything. That's what makes Barnbougle so special. Yeah. It's one of the elements that makes it incredible.
Well, I think that's why you get Mike Clayton, Tom Doak, Corin Crenshaw to come in and do what they do.
Absolutely, mate. Let's go across that creek, that cut that divides the water body that divides the two courses, and we'll skip to the Lost Farm.
Is it Sally's Point? That the point where that creek has been cut? Is that Sally's Point? Is that what it's called? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. I'm actually annoyed. I can't think of the name of the cut. I've got it here somewhere, but it's in my notes somewhere along the lines. But
I took a great photo, which Barnbougle you'll find on their Instagram, looking from, I think, Lost Farm back across to Barnbougle. So if you want to get a sort of sense of the separation, it looks across that creek. So anyway, Lost Farm. Let's go back.
Let's go to the Lost Farm, mate. Let's talk about what we thought of the farm. And I'll start first by saying that I wished I'd have played the Lost Farm first. There you go. I wished I'd have played the Lost Farm first before the dunes to ease my way into the landscape and the golf experience that's had down there. And the reason I say that is because the Lost Farm for me has a much bigger dune landscape. There's where the clubhouse sits and the restaurant up on top and the accommodation. You're up on high. It's massive. And I felt that the golf course was, because they were unusable for golf in terms of routing a fairway sort of over them and that sort of stuff, they were more valley type golf holes where they were in the base of the dunes, with the dunes towering more often than not, apart from the par threes, they were towering around the golf hole. And I felt that was a gentler experience than some of them. I'm not saying they're not introduced into the fairways at all, because there's some beautiful movement in the golf holes. But more often than not, the one that sticks in my mind was the 10th, where you hit off just near you come back to the pro shop and you just see these giant run of dunes either side of you, and you play down in this big valley, and it's just incredible to stand there and look at what's ahead of you. And it felt, I'm not saying it was because my score didn't reflect it, but it felt more gentle. Each tee felt more gentle. I could look at it and go, okay, I just got to hit it. The first is, it's like landing on a runway.
Yeah.
And some of our guys missed it.
Oh, really? Name names?
No, I'm not going to name names, because some of them could actually play really good golf and they didn't hit the fairway at all. But we'll move on.
Yeah. Well,
but that's my first thing. I wished I'd have played the Lost Farm first. From my experience, to get first, and I can't ever do it again, I wished I'd have played it first to be brought into the experience more gentle.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I was like you. I played Barnbougle Dunes first, and then Lost Farm. We teed off in the dark on the second day because we played 40 holes that day. And
oh wow!
And my recollection didn't really keep score. The other boys kept score, and I was sort of scoring, but I reckon I had a couple of bad holes, but I had more good holes. So I reckon I maybe shot around 2 or 3 over around Lost Farm. I definitely had a couple of birdies. I had the first first birdie of the trip, because that was the thing of having the birdie. And I think maybe the first par 5 at Lost Farm, not the first, but the I can't remember the holes, but maybe it's in the front 9. Had a birdie there, and then had an eagle on 9, and so I was on fire a little bit. But after
an eagle on 9,
just drove the green, sunk the putt. No, I was actually just a metre short of the green and putted it in.
Great stuff. I thought it was a green that was probably drivable. A couple of us got up there close, but I don't think anyone got the eagle, mate. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. But you can see, like, it's, to me, I sort of describe the difference if someone asked that it's more of a resort links type feel.
Yeah, okay.
You know, and I don't know if that does justice, and please, Richard Sattler, if you don't listen to this, please, I hope I don't offend you, but it seemed to be built around being more appealing and less daunting to a greater number of people without the compromise of having a true links experience, is the way that I would describe it.
Okay.
Therefore, you know, you have a little bit more ease of operation around the course, but, you know, you there's no sacrifice to the experience that you're in some pretty impressive territory. So I don't know if that sort of surmises how I feel about it. There was a couple of really hard holes. I think the 8th par 5 is probably one of the hardest holes I've ever played.
Great golf hole, but I agree, it's a very hard hole. I loved it, actually, and I think I had a 7.
So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question again, Steve. I just sort of wax on, but yeah,
mate, look,
it wouldn't have bothered me which one I played first, but I did play better on on that day because I'd sort of warmed up on Barnbougle Dunes the day before and had my golf legs a bit about me a little bit more, and was able to hit a better, you know, had just a better feel for what was happening.
Yeah, look, and whether this is an excuse or not, like I said, I wish I'd have played it first. That's just the way I felt about it. I hurt my back on the first day playing the Dunes course, so I was only doing half swings playing the farm. And I only got to play it once because we were playing the Dunes the next day. But like I said, I agree with you. Is it more of a resorty style feel for a links landscape? Possibly so. Did that detract anything from your experience? I don't think it did at all. No. It's 20 holes, for those that don't know, done by Core and Crenshaw. It's got some dramatic ground. It's got some fantastic and adventurous golf holes. I think it was, let me see, like you, mate, numbers escape me a little bit, but I think it was the 5th, the par 4 that goes along that cut, that water body that we talked about that divides the holes. You play doglegs around a giant dune on the right-hand side, and there's this enormous green up the top. And a great hole that once you get down, it looks like you've only got about a fairway that's, you know, sort of 10 yards wide to land it in. But when you get there, you've got a runway when you get up around that dune to see where you can play to. And I never got to go back. But there's some sensational holes. And I love a golf course property where you have different experiences on your 18. So, yes, there's 2 golf courses. It didn't feel like they were the same, though, which I liked.
No, definitely.
2 different experiences.
Vastly different. You know, they weren't cloned by any stretch, and you know, I've not had enough experience on playing, you know, Core and Crenshaw courses to sort of compare and contrast to other work that they've done. You know, you can certainly see a bit of Tom Doak influence in some of the courses that I've seen of his around.
Yep.
I'm interested to go when I go to Scotland next and play the new course over there called Dumbarnie, and it's a new links, and you know, it's very much been highlighted as the, you know, one of the new draw cards for, you know, international golf tourism when it reopens over there as a new links. It's a bit different, you know. It's links as in, you know, not all of the holes go the same direction, so they've really sort of laid it out that way, not that true out and back, and so designed it to let the wind play its effect on every different hole, and you can sort of go away and from the water. And I reckon, by what I can see, that I might refer to, I don't know, I could be wrong, that might be a resort type links type feel as well, where it's a little bit more open but still get that real links feel. Kings Barnes I haven't played. I don't know if that's a resort links type thing. People can tell us what they think, but it It was very, 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 very pleasant to play. It was very enjoyable. Not pleasant, underselling it. It was very enjoyable, and it was different. So you go down there and play two courses, and you got two wildly different experiences.
And they are, and we talk about that the Lost Farm has 20 holes. It's got two spare holes, 13B and 18B, or whatever, 20, whatever. Good little par threes in themselves. The last hole, the 20th hole, was just. It's just that's the fun. I was like the stadium hole of Barnbougle, if you like. We were standing around watching other teams behind us, other groups, people we didn't know. Some of our guys were, we were having a few side bets as we went around, as you do. Fiver here, I'll bet you on this hole you're going to get a bogey or whatever. We had a couple of guys in ours that were betting on people we didn't know, watching them play the hole, and they're like a fiver on whether old mate in the blue hat's going to hit the green. I'll double it. He's going to three putt. You were having fun not only playing it and having fun with each other, but you got that sports bar behind you when you finish. You're grabbing a couple of drinks. You're standing outside and you're watching all these groups come in, and everyone was there for a golf trip, and they're all having a whale of a time playing the 20th hole. I think these little quirks that are into the Lost Farm, which again is, like you said, is quite different to the dunes. And I will say one thing.
Yeah.
And this might, I don't even know why. I think the only reason I have a critique, which I don't like to do, of somewhere so good is because it is that good. And that is when you get out to the 11th tee, it's down to the 10th green, you can see the road out the back there, and you can see I think there's some planes and a little airstrip out the back.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, we were not at Barnbougle for me. We were back out to, it's like we're back to civilization. And that sounds terrible, but it was just like there were no dunes in that area to block that stuff. It was just open. And it was the only part of the golf courses where I felt that happen. And I don't know why it bothered me, but it still does. And I feel disappointed in saying it as well, but you got 11 that goes south, I think, and then 12 comes back before you cross the road, which is an internal road.
Yep.
You cross the road to go to the 13th tee, and then you're back into the dune.
Yep.
But for those two holes, 11 and 12, I just felt were removed because you could see other parts of the area you were at. Like you stand out on the 4th green 15, you can see Bridport off in the distance. But at no point did it feel like we were away from the dunescape. When we got to 11 and 12, for whatever reason, I just felt we weren't attached. It's just, I don't know.
I can see why you'd say that, obviously, because that you're correct in what you say, that it is a different look. I actually didn't mind. I don't mind that. That you get away from a predominant feature of a course, and you have a couple of holes that are a little gentle. Gentle's not.
Well, they're not gentle.
They're not gentle holes. No,
weren't they?
The par 4 there is. What's the one over the hill that goes down to the south?
11.
That's 11.
And that's got the biggest green I can think of.
Yeah, so for me, I love that hole because it just set up for my eye off the tee. Just a little sort of left to right sort of fade, smash driver both times I played it. Wedge on sort of thing. Might have three putted at once. The par 5 next one, that sort of flattish one, it sort of got me a little bit. But no, I don't mind that. And once again, if you go back to some links courses that you might see over the way, not too dissimilar. Narran and Port New, I don't remember exactly the holes, but there are a couple of flat holes as they take you into this massive dunescape that just run a bit alongside a farm. You've got a little bit of, not marron grass. I don't have marron grass there, but you've got fairway, tall grass, and cows. And it's fairly flat, and then all of a sudden the green just goes down to the water, and you come from farmland down to the water, and then you're up this big hill, and you're back into the dunes, and it reminded me like that. So it was just different, and I don't find it. I don't feel like I was cheated out of value of the dunes experience. I think it was probably because I was so immersed, and you do get a little bit of that. I shouldn't say you don't get it anywhere else. On the second hole,
of the dunes course, where at the left side it goes into that sort of low land, which goes off to the road, and you can see straight through.
I think the old runway used to be down there. I think, I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
Because down by the fort, which ultimately you come to. But I look, like I said, I have no idea why. And I remember making comments to my playing partners there. I was like, what just happened? We're in Mordor of Lord of the Rings coming off a 10th tee, and then we come down the back, and there's old mate, the courier truck, driving down the side of the golf course. And that's probably what it was.
Yeah.
You know, it was a Pantech truck driving down, and I'm like, I lost it. And you get down the 11th green, and there was a stand of poplars that was remaining from the property, obviously, back when that area was a bit of farm down that low end. And that's the road that you come into when you get into the resort. Now, that's when I put two and two together. So, like I said, I feel disappointed that I felt like that, because everything else was such an experience, but there's nothing wrong with it. That was just the way it stood out in my mind. As we got to the 10th green, 11th tee, and I was like, there's a truck. And I wasn't expecting to see a truck. And that's probably all it was, to be fair. So anyway, that's down that end. But then you get to 13, and that's a great golf hole too. And you come back. That's where you're coming back, and then the resort's up on high on your left.
Yep.
As you go 13, 13B, down to 14, the par 3, to 15 as well, I think it is.
What's the par 3 that's below the resort? What's that one?
15,
right.
Because 16 is you go past the 18th green, and then par 3, and then you go out again back in front of the clubhouse. And then you got the long par 3 up, and then the 18th comes back. So it must be 15, the downhill par 3 from the sand edge.
Same thing there. The low marker, big shot maker, just trying to do whatever he could to get the ball near there. Played it totally the wrong way. Play it way left. Let the ball feed down because Cheese, as we refer to him, he nearly had a hole in one there just by playing it way to the left, letting it feed back down, and was like literally that far from the hole. Never been to Barnbougle, never played much golf. The newest golfer of the group, and the shot makers are all trying to go, just do that, dude, play there, and he just cuts one in and around, loops it down, slings it down the chute there, and ends up on the top plateau because the green was in tucked behind that little bunker and dune there.
Yes, yeah. Look, take nothing away from the Lost Farm. And I suppose you're going to compare because it's the same property, but they're not. They are two different experiences. And I reckon, and I'm just going to throw it out there, I reckon that people might find the Lost Farm more receptive. Okay, maybe rephrase that. The Lost Farm might be more receptive to more types of golfers than the dunes. I think. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it would fit for more golfers. But yeah.
Well, let's have a look. So I've got last year's Golf Australia magazine top 100 listing here, where both courses feature very highly. Barnbougle Dunes in Golf Australia magazine's latest top 100, so that's the 2020 top 100, is number 3. And Barnbougle Lost Farm is number 4. So they're right next to each other. Bill Core, average points 97, blah, blah, blah.
Now, is this where we should make mention that you're a panelist for the top 100 of Golf Australia magazine? I
did secrete myself onto that panel a couple of years ago, and for no other reason, just to try and get some more golf experience and keep contributing.
Very good.
Barnbougle Lost Farm. What does Matt Mullick have to say? Lost Farm is a course equal in quality to its older sibling next door, expertly routed by Bill Court. The course is wide and manageable in any wind. It presents dramatic tee shots and asks for thoughtful golf and many thrilling approaches. The variety and quality of the par 4 holes is really something. That was Matt Mullick, who I know very well and is a great, astute scholar of golf architecture, hickory golf, from of note. So anything that Matt Mullick says, you would trust. Every time I play, so Scott Warren, another guy on the panel, Every time I play Bill Caw's masterpiece on Bass Strait, I find some ground feature or pin position I'd never previously noticed. It's a close run thing for the title of best course at Bridport, but for the fine details of Lost Farm, raise it slightly above its rugged, dramatic sister next door. So there you go.
Oh, there you go. And look at, I think both of those summations of the course at the Lost Farm, I mean, it's the only Core Crenshaw course in Australia. Their first crack at it, no better place to have a go. I think that they're fair comments and well-rounded in what their thoughts are. And I think that's about right too.
Matt
only played it once.
Matt Micah about Barnbougle Dunes, just to flip back to there, says, in my opinion, Barnbougle Dunes is the nearest challenger to Royal Melbourne's West Crown. The course features so many fun shots and so many all-world holes. Amazingly natural green complexes and great strategic quality are the course's hallmarks. A tremendous setting for golf, constantly skirting and traversing the dunes. The fescue surfaces are the Southern Hemisphere's nearest thing to Scotland's finest ancient fairways. There you go.
There you go. Yep.
Eddie Morrison.
That's pretty good to see where they sit on last year's list, and and both so close, and I think rightly so, both close to each other and close to the top. And I haven't played Royal, but there you go.
The thing for me is it's sensational that they're so close to the top because they're public access. It's sensational that they are such good value. I think if you look at these top 100 lists from all around the world and look at some of the upper echelon, you don't get value like you get at Barnbougle Dunes.
Well, let's talk about it. Like you said, public access. Anyone can go there and play golf, which I love. And when you pay to play there, as you know, you're playing for the day. You're paying to play for the day. So you can play, if you can fit 72 holes into one day, then go for broke. And that's why we did it late afternoons at like 4 or 5 o'clock. We went out and just started playing until dark. Even into the dark, into the night, we were playing golf because it's a golf experience. You're there to take it all in. I was just walking the golf course. I think it's $130 or something for the day's golf, or $150 for the day's golf. I can tell you from one of my experiences, you go to Hamilton Island, which I do love, and it's a hell of a test of golf as well. It's a very difficult golf course, in my opinion. It's an experience like no other as well. It's $150. And you pay $150 to lose the best part of 10 or so golf balls, which I can do quite easily at Hamo. So it's value for money. I'm not comparing it to the rest of the world or other parts of the world, which I know that you can, but you've got all-day golf. I can only play 18 holes at Hamo. You get a boat across on a time, you play golf, you stay there, you eat, you drink, and then you've got a boat to come back. I can't stay there all day and into the night, whereas Barnbougle is all that. And, you know, like you said, what are some of the other places that you know of, mate, where value for money? What's it like in the British Isles?
Yeah, well, it's been a couple of years since I've been to Ireland, but, you know, I remember bypassing Ballybunion when I was choosing, I was staying at Lahinch. Fortunately, back in that time, we had reciprocal rights. So with Lahinch, I was, you know, playing as a reciprocal member for free, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
But I think it was like €200. I could be wrong. Bypassed Ballybunion because it was €250, and I just thought, I'm probably not going to spend that amount of money.
For video's sake, anyone watching, I'm right into the camera. Did you say €250?
I think it was. Yeah, I might want to we might want to just double check that, but I'm pretty sure it was a couple of €100.
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say it was 200. Let's go further and say it was €150. What's that equate to? It's about $250.
Yeah, just short of 300 sort of thing.
And I'm sure it's only for one round, not all day, as many holes as you can play.
So I remember going to Tralee, which was, you know, it was maybe like €100. Muirfield, you know, is one course that my family as a gift wanted to book me on to playing Muirfield, which you can play. They have 2 days a week, I think, and certain times that you can jump onto the Muirfield website. Very, 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 very private golf course. One of the key differences of golf in that part of the world, that, you know, even the private courses mostly in the main let people play. But it was like £275. So it was like back in the day, it was like $500, and I wouldn't let them. Wow. I said, do not book me and pay that amount of money for me to go and play golf. I don't need to play that course that much. Fortunately, you know, like in global golf now, you get to meet a few people, and I've played there as a guest of a member, and
Wow.
he wouldn't let me pay anything. But I think what they do with their members' guests is like, it's only like minimal charge. I don't know. Like at North Berwick, a member guest rate is 10 quid, 10 pounds. For a member to take their mate, it's 10 pounds.
Yeah.
To go and play as an international tourist, it's 150, 170 sort of thing.
Yeah, right. And we, I suppose, apples and apples. We're talking some of those courses you mentioned, like Muirfield, they're private golf courses. That's like a Royal Melbourne. You know, it's not a public access golf course. Whereas that's the beauty of Barnbougle, isn't it?
Yeah, well, anyone can go and play, and they pay the money. Absolutely.
Yep. And I love, and I go back to, I love that you can experience it however you choose. So there's the teeing areas. They give you a bit of guidance in the pro shop and say, what do you want to do? How good are you? Or how not good are you? If you want to experience it, and this is where this is how it suggests to go out there and go for broke. And if you want to go from the blacks, which we didn't do, and it would have been brutal in a 4-club win, I might say, you could go out there and try and beat Mother Nature's finest.
Just going back to I'm just trying to see if I can find out how much it does cost at the moment to play, which we can find out. But the beauty about golf in both those parts of the world, there is plenty of awesome links golf that you can play very affordably. Like if you want to, go and shoot the Holy Grail open rotor courses, you have to be expecting to pay because,
of course,
let's see what happens after post-COVID and when travel opens back up. But the American tourist dollar has just jacked up the prices of a lot of those top courses. But if you want to go to like in Scotland, like a Panmure or a Montefiore, or you want to go to Mecca Links as opposed to Royal Aberdeen, which is next door on the same stretch of land, you're playing the best links golf that you'll ever experience, but you're just not getting to tick the bucket list courses off.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, that's a fair comment too. And I think it's important as well that Australian golf has a place at the level of Barnbougle that sits with 2 courses in the top 5 that's public access. I think people can experience it. And we've got the King Island courses as well, which you can experience. There's a means to get there. Don't get me wrong. I had to fly from Sydney, had to fly from Melbourne. It's not next to the airport. There's a trip to get to the courses, and then you want to stay there. There's a lot more to it than just a trip to go and play golf in a day. I think that's an important component, and it gets to the model that Barnbougle is.
Okay, so I just confirmed there. Ballybunion at the moment is €250.
Wow. So what's that roughly? Is that about $500?
Just short, be 400 and something.
I have a bit of a chuckle and a wry smile. That's astonishing for a golf experience.
But people pay it, and like it's Ballybunion,
and they're happy too.
Ballybunion Old Course, like I drove past it, didn't stop in there. I had to get back, but anyway, there's a fair bit happening in Tasmania with golf, and I'm sure that you've dedicated a fair bit of. I'm not sure how this will come out. There's, if there's 1, 2, or 3 podcasts in this, Stevie, I don't know, but I was just going to say there's a fair bit happening down there. I bumped into Mike Clayton on Sunday at Peninsula Kingswood for the pennant thing, and he and Lucas and a couple others were going down to 7 Mile Beach and doing a site recce during the week. And
they started tree clearing.
Yeah, so that's going to look sensational.
We get back to the people behind some of these courses, and Clayton's been involved with, those sorts of places that we know, like the Dunes, and I've had a complete memory blank about some of the others in Victoria that Mike's attached to. He did with Tom Doak, did St Andrews Beach, which is another one of my favourites. And now he's involved with under Clayton DeVries Pont with 7 Mile, and Matt Goggin is the man behind that project, an Australian touring golf professional, which people might know. And you've got Clayton DeVries Pont involved, and Clayton's from, like I said, Barnbougle, Dunes and St Andrews Beach, and Mike DeVries is from Cape Wickham. Put those 2 names together on a sandy site at Hobart in Tasmania again, I can only but speculate what we're going to get out of it. And I think it's going to be another exceptional experience.
And what's the other course down there at North Arm or Arm End? Is it Craft and Mogford?
Arm End, which is a Craft and Mogford design project, which is It's on the other side of Hobart, I believe, near the Derwent. That's another experience that's going to be brought about once that gets up and done as well. And I'm not sure whether that project has actually started construction just yet, but all eyes at the moment are on 7 Mile. So with the starting with the clearing of the trees and some of the weeds and so on in that property. So Matt Goggins moving forward at a great rate of knots now that he's allowed to kick off, and all the red tape side of things has been done, and looking forward to seeing how that's going to evolve. Exciting stuff. And I say Golf Destinations Australia, and now it's Tasmania. It's really starting to produce something special.
Yeah, I'll know that you'll be certainly looking forward to seeing that. So, but certainly so for me, because, probably my interest in this space wasn't as, developed as it was, when Barnbougle was being built and when Barnbougle Lost Farm was being built. I was probably not even playing golf back then in my current sort of level of golfism. So I'm really interested in knowing Mike. I don't know Mike, but I've met Mike, and g'day Mike, g'day Ross, how you going? Lucas the same. Yep. I'm sure you're looking forward to chatting to those guys when you can, if you can.
Absolutely, that's the goal with Matt. We've spoken briefly about it, so we want to be able to do that soon. So having that, I guess, a little bit more closeness, it's really exciting to see. Be able to watch. I want to get on a bobcat and go down there and dig some holes, mate. That's. Mate, let me tell you, having a bobcat on a golf course is a lot of fun. I've been fortunate to do it, building my part of the golf course at Katoomba when we were doing the work there. And whether you get on a 3-ton excavator or a bobcat or whatever, and you're moving stuff around and making shapes, it's a hell of a lot of fun. And I've had the joy of being able to do that at Katoomba. Yeah. Sadly, before it closed, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's I want to try and get down to 7 Mile during that build phase, and who knows whether we can make that work. I'd love to be able to do that and show a few people just what's going on with there. So, look, exciting stuff is happening in golf in Australia, and post-COVID, I think people are gearing up. We're going to get a lot of golf travellers come back here. I think international people are really going to want to come down here and experience what we've got again now that they've been locked away. And I know a few of my followers, be it on Instagram and the podcast, that are international people, and they're champing at the bit to get back here to see family and loved ones, and also play some golf while they're doing it. Mate, I think they'll be fighting the Aussies off, because I think Barnbougle's just been overrun with the amount of local people that have been jumping on planes and getting down there. Kate Wickham, the same sort of thing. I know the young bloke who's the pro down there, young English fella, did some work for me for a little bit. He's taken on the role as the pro at Kate Wickham. Said they've never been busier, and it's unbelievable. Just all the Aussies travelling. It's great. I think in a roundabout way, and we talked about the boom golf's had because of COVID, and it's one of the few things you could do during lockdown in a lot of states, not in all. I think it's opened up our Australian eyes to what we have. I think there's a lot of Aussies, and I'm not one, that's travelled the world to play golf, and plenty that travel the world to play golf regularly. I think they're starting to go, you know what? We've got some really good courses here. We don't need to travel to play. We can go and experience, British Isle golf in Tasmania. We can experience some desert style golf, or dry landscape golf at Royal Adelaide and some of the Adelaide courses, or some of the WA courses. We don't need to. We've got resort courses in Queensland and Victoria and New South Wales. We don't need to go. And there's some high quality stuff. We're not talking about places that are just just scraping in. These things are well and truly cutting the mustard, which I know about because I'm not an international traveller. But some of our internationals are going, well, to get my fix, I have to stay here. And they're starting to really, like you said, overrun some of these places. I spoke to a local businessman from Port Fairy, and golfer from Port Fairy the other day, and he was just articulating what was happening in the town of Port Fairy, not just in a golfing sense, but certainly golfing, but the whole town is just awash with people that are travelling down there, a lot of them being golfers, and the economy is great in the town. People are happy, and the golf course has never been in a better shape. Like it's and people are loving playing that version of links golf down there. Once again, anytime you got a golf course and you can see water on one side and waves crashing and wind blowing, I'm there. Sure. Absolutely. And again, it's access, right? I mean, you can't just go and walk on to New South Wales here in Sydney. But you can just go and walk on, or book and walk on to Barnbougle, or book and walk on to Port Fairy.
Yeah.
And that's a great experience. Mate, let's look, we've talked at length about what our experiences are and our thoughts on Barnbougle and after our first time trip there. I want to finish up by saying to you in one word, and I haven't even thought about this, but I'm going to do it. In one word, as difficult as this could be, one single word, not a phrase, what would you use to describe your experience at Barnbougle?
Authentic.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Authentic. Wow. That's good. Very well done. I'm going to say enlightening.
Okay. Deep.
Yeah, and it was. I got emotional. This is going to sound weird. It's different to you. It's not quite, it's not like walking on to St Andrews, but I probably never actually thought I'd make it to Barnbougle. I never really had, I think, a way of making it work in life, and you're just not sure whether you can travel that far and make an experience like that come together. There was a moment where I was out on my own, just walking the front nine and exploring and experiencing the landscape and everything that they created there. And I did for a moment. I was up, I think it was up on that towering dune by the 8th green, and I just stood there and I did a 360 turn and took all in what had been created and where we were and what the environmental experience was like and all of that, and thinking, did I ever in life think I'd get to this point to experience, and it's just a golf experience, right? But for whatever reason, because I've grown up at golf since I was the age of 9 and immersed in it from there on, I just stood there and there were no sounds. There was nothing. There wasn't even any golfers out there at that time. And I was just like, this is quite remarkable. And that's why I say enlightening, because there was a lot to learn from my side of things as well, from the professional agronomy side, as much as the golf side and the architectural side and all that sort of stuff. It's deep. One word, that was it. And I think,
we haven't. I'm going to assume that you've. Yeah. Well, sorry. Let's rewind that part. That was great because any time that you can go and sit and absorb a golf course, and I've only done it a handful of times, not even maybe a couple of times. Once at Lahinch, definitely the day before I played, I remember walking out there and having a look and finding the spare green. Next thing, I was sitting next to the goats eating the goats of Lahinch, the famous goats of Lahinch. Peeped over the head. Who's this over here on our spare green? And I'm sharing. There was no one playing the golf course because the South of Ireland stroke match play championships were being run, the final. So there was only 2 boys out there playing, and I sort of took off back to the clubhouse, and there was no one there, sitting up overlooking the beach, and the goats popped their head up, and I was by myself. I was traveling by myself. I thought, okay, just leave me here. This is good. I'm fine. And I get why you said enlightening, and I can see after while mine might be authentic and yours is enlightening. We didn't talk about what I was going to say. We didn't talk about the Barnbougle run.
We didn't. No, you're right.
Because I didn't see that. We flew a drone. We flew a little drone from the balcony of the room across there and tried to get a.
All right.
We were that. They said they could go and have a walk up there and have a look, but after 40 holes on the second day and then 18 the first day, and we had 36 the next day, so 94 holes in 2.5 days.
I hadn't done as much walking as you, and I was knackered after our 4 days there, or 3.5 days there. I was very fortunate to get a tour with Superintendent Phil Hill on the last morning before we caught the bus out to get to the airport. And I got a tour from the inside of the property, as it were, looking at being driven around, not walking. And mate, look, I was bummed that it wasn't open quite yet. They were just trying to make sure they could get it to where they wanted to before they opened it. So that's why it was a little bit later than they'd had originally planned. It's just, I've since seen people having played it and talked about it and that sort of thing. So to give anyone an idea of what it's like, it's a unique concept, I think, for us in Australia. in that it's this 14-hole short course, and some people throw around and bandy around a par 3 course and as gimmicks. This is a real version. It's not a gimmicky version. It's not squeezed in amongst some houses somewhere in the suburbs of the city. It's got all the similar design elements that you could experience and find on golf courses, rolled into a short course. And there's 2 short par 4s there that they make that are drivable, 260 metres, 270 metres. So for some people, it's not even a driver. The views across the property, across the Lost Farm, over to the dunes, over to the ocean, they're all there. But it's really fun. Looking at these holes and the way the greens are shaped, and there's punch bowls. There's a 10th that springs to mind. I'm sure it's as far down to the green in terms of elevation as it is long. And you could probably putt. And that was one of the things Phil and I were talking about, is who's going to putt it to the green down this 170-odd metre par 3, because it literally fests you down a steep hill all the way to the green. I'd love to hear more about those that are going to see it. I know a couple of people I've spoken to on Instagram that are going to travel down there, I think next month, and they'll experience it. I know people that are keen as. So it looks really, really cool. The same guys that constructed the Lost Farm, John Hawker, I think it is, on the machinery, did it during COVID times. There's a lot of backstory to it as well. I think it's just one of those other. It's almost intrinsically Barnbougle before it's even open for play. It's like a long version of the 20th hole at the Lost Farm. It's just all cool fun.
So where is it sited? Is it on that big rope around the top of the dune that sort of circumferences a lot of Lost Farm?
Yeah, well, no, it's sort of more in the middle of the Lost Farm, as it were. There's like you're right, it's a big dunescape, and it's sort of just to the side of, I think, the 8th and behind the 9th.
Yep.
Behind the 9th tee to the side of the 8th, you can see one of the greens up as you play the 8th hole. And it was discovered, the land was discovered, as the story goes, by they were doing an environmental burn of some of the vegetation on the property, cooked, for my way of saying, cooked a little bit longer than it was planned, and it subsequently opened up more visibility of what was beneath that vegetation. And it, the story goes, I think Richard got on the horn to Bill Core and said, listen, you might need to have a little bit of a look-see at this piece of ground that's just been opened up, and see what you think, if there's anything we can do with it. And they come up with this idea of a 14-hole short course. So you play a couple, I think, down low, 1 or 2 down low along to get there, and then you climb up the dune, and literally you run a ridge loop around the top of the dune, so you can see over everything. The view from the top is incredible. And trust me, if you thought the wind was a problem on a windy day down at sea level, wait till you play these holes up at the top, I tell you.
The amazing thing which intrigues me is that you can't, other than that little green that you can see maybe at the 8th, as you described, you wouldn't know. You can't see it from when you play it. And
honestly, you don't. And
when we flew the drone over, like, I was trying to get my bearings, like, and the guys that had been there before knew exactly where it was. And like, we were flying, and I said, it's over there. And we couldn't, I just was flummoxed by the fact that you couldn't see any hint of it from what we had just played.
Yep, 100% agree. I was looking for it because I kind of knew where it was when I played the Lost Farm, and apart from the one green, I was like, oh, is that the back of the Lost Farm, or is that part of the new Bugle Run course? And I wasn't sure because I hadn't played out the back yet, and that's it. Only that one spot. Apart from that, it's high enough, and the way that some of the vegetation sits around the sides, you can't see it, and it's one of those beautiful revealing elements, or that doesn't reveal itself until you're up there, that you just go, holy shit, is this actually here? And there's some great carries and some great views, and really, like I said, some of the design elements, there's nice punch bowl, the 1 off 10, you just free fall off the edge, and the 2 short par 4. Look, everything about it is fun, and the idea is, from talking to Phil, is that it's meant to be more about fun than serious. I mean, you can go to the Barnbougle and play the farm and the dunes and keep score and compete with other guys. Our guys did. We competed against each other. Not that I played very well, but that was the idea, was to have a little bit of competition within the groups. But the the Bugle Run is more about probably throwing a couple of side bets and having fivers here and there. I bet you a fiver you can't hit the green on this 270-metre par 4.
Yeah.
Or, that sort of stuff. And it's that half a round. I don't know if you experienced it when you play in the morning, or maybe it's because we're unfit and we weren't prepared to walk another 18. If you play in the morning, you could go and have lunch, casually have a couple of beers, and then go, instead of playing the front 9, let's go and play that one. So we can just play that 14 holes and zip around. And then, that's the idea, I think, behind a lot of it. So didn't quite get to experience it because it wasn't open. I think it was only open a week later or two. We missed it by a week or two.
Yeah, a week and a half or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, bugger all. So, but just another reason to get to Barnbougle.
Well, mate, hopefully the realisation that golf travel for you is something that you can do a bit more, and I'm sure that with the support of those loved ones around you, that they see how much you enjoy it, how passionate you are about it, and what you are actually offering people that listen to your information, and you might get the chance to do it a little bit more, because it certainly gives you so many new aspects and ways to appreciate what is out there, and so hopefully you get to do it again down there. If you ever have a spot in a group down there, don't ever be afraid of ringing me and saying there's a spot, because it's highly likely that I will accept. And likewise, like I've got to get up to New South Wales and Sydney and play some of the golf around there.
Mate, yeah, look, and exactly that. If you're up this way, mate, and you've got a spot, happily join you for a round somewhere, whether it be back at your former hunting ground, be it Hunter Valley, and experience some of those courses again, or anywhere that it might be. Mate, yeah, look, I happily give you a yell, and I love travelling around, and certainly like you said, at the moment we can't travel anywhere, so hopefully if you get the chance to get around, you experience some more of Australia and things that you might not have experienced before. So it's a lovely thing to be able to do. One parting point that I will say, mate, I've loved the chat. One parting thought about Barnbougle is, I wonder if it'll stay at 2.5 golf courses. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Do you reckon that there'll ever be another one?
What I know, what I've gleaned, is that Richard owns so much land down there. I don't know exactly how far and back, but
it's a lot. I can tell you now, it's nearly as far as you can see.
So, because I think I joked about, we were talking about the accommodation, and I said, well, why wouldn't, maybe Richard develop some accommodation in Bridport and just have another offer there? And someone said, mate, I'd imagine if he did anything, he'd do it on the property, because there's so much land down there. So I reckon you could only think that his appetite for building quality golf courses isn't going to go away. I don't know him. I saw him there 2 times, like you. I never met Richard. He's a bloody gem to the golf industry as far as I'm concerned for building those places. I think, like anything, once you get the appetite for something, you want to do it again, don't you?
And it works. It's not like it's not working.
Yeah.
So I think the model's there. Could it be our Bandon? Could it be Australia's version of Bandon? Who knows?
Sort of already is in some respects, but why not? Why not?
I'd love to see it. I don't know. Like you said, I not knowing anything about that side of things, I just can only think of ideas and what ideas must be running through a guy like Richard's head to get this far. How much more has he got in him, do you think?
I reckon that probably one of the biggest decisions is, where do I build the next runway? How much bigger? How much wider? How much longer? I'm going to have to build an airport. That'd be the big thing, I reckon, because there's 3 or 4 planes coming in there every day. And I've got to say, friends at Air Adventure, the Pilatus PC-12 corporate jet looks fantastic. The new jet that you fly on when you jump on it at Essendon Airport and fly down there, it just do you know? I don't know if you noticed that one, the pointy nose, the prop on the front, the Pilatus. You see all the rich people in America flying around in them. It's not a turbo. It's not a jet.
Okay.
But I bought What a beautiful jet that is. I remember saying to Mike, that's the Pilatus PC-12 from Air Adventure. And he goes, oh, whatever, mate.
Yeah,
whatever, whatever plane spotter. Like,
maybe that's what we need to be on next time, mate.
Well, you fly straight there. But anyway, whatever way you get there, just get there.
No, that's it. But look, thanks for the chat, Roscoe. And to anyone out there listening, I hope you've enjoyed listening to our first time experience at Barnbougle. You need to go there. To anyone listening, you just need to make it happen. And if you've been there before, you know exactly what we're talking about. But Roscoe, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate your time as always, and thoroughly enjoyable.
If you can't get there, by the time you listen to this, you've played the equivalent of a round of golf there. So we've sort of delivered a round of golf to you in listening terms and length, because this is one of the longest chats that we've ever had. And
it is.
Very, very pleasurable, as always, Steve, and I appreciate all your consideration to me and your kind words. Thank you.
Unbelievable. Thanks, Roscoe.
All right, mate.
Cheers, mate.
And there you have it, folks. What an epic conversation with Roscoe. Absolutely loved reliving the trip that we had down to Barnbougle. 2 separate trips, but equally at the same time, so it was the same sort of kind of trip. So just in case you're wondering, that cut I kept mentioning with my discussions with Ross was it's called Adam's Cut, which was a diversion of Great Foresters River. And it cuts through the Barnbougle property, and divides both the courses. So I couldn't think of it at the time, but there you go. That's a post-edit note. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you've never been before, I can't strongly recommend enough on so many levels, as I think you've probably now heard and got a sense from, on how many different levels it's worth going to experience Barnbougle. Both from myself and Roscoe, 2 different backgrounds in coming into playing at Barnbougle and experiencing what it is down there. And that's, you heard about our thoughts and what we took away from it. And I certainly can't wait to go back and experience it again one day. And for those of you who have been there, I'm curious to know whether you had similar thoughts. How different were your thoughts? What did you take away from your first time? What did you take away from your 5th time? Was it as enjoyable and enlightening as I put it, the second time, the third time plus? And are there other places that you get that same sort of feeling from? So, look, like I said, once again, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much to Roscoe and the My Love of Golf podcast, where he's from and what he does. But I thank Roscoe for his time and having a lengthy conversation that we did. And you could probably tell we have a great time talking about our trips, and certainly any of the conversations that we have and the topics that we discuss, we have a great time doing it. So had fun doing this one just the same. I will say to you that if you haven't listened to Roscoe and the My Love Golf podcast before, do yourself a favour. Go over and find his channel, as it were, and download or listen to or stream, however you do it, some of the fascinating interviews that he's done. He hooks up with some great people and has great conversation with them, and talks about what they enjoy in the game, what they get out of the game, and some of their experiences along the way. And I find it most entertaining. A lot of people do as well, and I'm sure you will too. So I will say to you, go there and find some of them and have a listen, and I'm sure you'll get a kick out of listening to them just the same as I do along the way. And that's really it, guys. I will make a little footnote there and apologise for the audio. Still trying to work out when I do interviews how to get the best sound out of distance and over the internet and all that sort of stuff, guys. So bear with me as I find the right model and the right equipment to do it with, but hopefully that worked for you. So thank you again for listening, and please like, share, subscribe, pass on, email, post, message, whatever you need to do to get my podcast out there. If you do enjoy it, please pass it on to those who you think will as well. I appreciate you once again coming to listen to the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast. As always, you hit 'em clean and we'll keep 'em green.